y2 is equal to 0. So you're essentially graphing this line right as a horizontal line, and then second trace 5, you're finding the intersection of the two. This one would be second trace 1, right? And then x is equal to 0. To find the y value when x is equal to a certain value, this is also just second trace 1, right, essentially. And then obviously in each scenario you have a different x value that you're entering. And here you would have to say y2 is equal to, or y5, whichever y is empty, right? And then you would say second trace 5, okay? And so how did it go? I'm just gonna go by who's here physically here. How did it go? Anybody have like questions? Did anybody run into issues? Or were you not able to do certain ones? Can you like nod if you were okay doing this, or yeah? And some of you might still be struggling. If you are, hopefully we're gonna improve and get better at it, okay? What I'm gonna do is show you the answer key for now, okay? And I think I just want to go over finding the intersections, like questions 2 to 7 on that first page. And if you had to do this on paper without having a graph paper, right? And you wanted to fit all 4 functions on your graph, right? You would want to look at my x values, right? What's the biggest x value that I need to account for? And there's 12 here on the positive side and -4 on the left. So if you went from like -20 to +20, you have plenty of room to fit in all your x values. And then the y, right, you get to +15 on the high side and -6 on the low side. So if you went -20 to +20 there, you're able to graph all of these on paper, right? Just by using the 2 points for each line, okay? And so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to just enter these. Maybe you should do the same thing, okay? So enter all 4 rewritten equations into your y1, y2, and so forth, okay? So if you already have it, you're golden, right? What's that? I don't have a calculator. You don't have a calculator?
Yeah, it's here.
Oh, okay. Thanks for letting me know. What's your name? Kyle. I think I signed. Did you pay already?
Yeah.
So I gave you 32, number 32. Okay. Thanks for letting me know. Many things going on right now. 32 is this one. So you're not getting the yellow because that's all we have. I'm gonna reset this because people always play around with it. Go ahead and enter that. So you might have to go back. Have you seen any videos on how to use a calculator? Okay. I'm just quickly gonna do the basics for you here. And we can talk about the rest later. Okay. You're good to go. Here's your lid. All right. So let's keep going. So I have all 4 entered. I'm just going to check, do I have an X for all of them? If you forget that X, which is a very common mistake, it's not going to be a diagonal line, folks, okay? If you're missing the X variable in any one of these, it's not going to be a diagonal line, so check for that, It's just going to be a horizontal line because all you have is y and a bunch of numbers on the other side. If you clean that up, it would just be a number. Okay, so just watch out for that. So let's go ahead and graph them all just to see, this is probably the messiest one you're going to see in this course. Like 4 is the max at the same time that I'm going to make you graph. So let's hit graph. Okay, I see that one, I see that one, and I actually see all four lines like this. And this is the last window that I've used yesterday, okay? So let me just shift over a little bit here. It seems like the light is right above there. So what you want to do is, if you're not seeing anything or if this window isn't working for you, zoom 6 always gets you to the standard values of -10, right? It would set the x min to -10, this to +10, and it would set your y min to -10 and +10, right? So let's everybody press the window button, and you would see that those four values that we're always looking at are not the standard values right now, except for x max, of course. Okay, so if you were to go zoom 6, so I'm going to go ahead and do that. Zoom 6. First of all, your window is going to look different. Okay, and watch when you press window again, you're back to the standard values, right? 10, 10, 10, 10, -10, 10. By the way, if you mix these up, I've had students try to type in -10 into x max and +10 here. It's going to give you an error. It's going to say that you mixed them up or something. I forget what the error name is, but it's not going to like it. Okay, so make sure you have the lowest value in the min and the highest value on the max. Let's hit graph again, and I'm going to adjust my window a little bit. So I'm going to increase my y max so that I see where these two lines meet. Let's do that first. I think we need to take it one step at a time. So window, I'm going to change my y max to let's say 20. Let's double it. That should be fine because we're very close. So change the y max to 20, hit graph, and now you should see right where they meet up here. We're seeing where these two meet, where these two meet. We should probably increase our x max a little bit. This line should be moved over. Okay, so we're going to go to window, x max. I'm going to change that to maybe double it. So instead of 10, we'll put 20 in there. Hit graph, and so now you can see that you've increased it this way. You can do this all at the same time, by the way. When you're learning how to use this, I would not recommend making too many changes at the same time. Then you go window again. I want to see a little bit more down here, so I'm gonna decrease the y min, right? Because y max and y min, they affect the y values you see. So I'm gonna go -20 there. And that's better. Okay, so this is a window that I would say is pretty good. Okay, and again, you could have a bigger window but too big is not good either, because then you're not going to see the little details as to where they meet, right? If you had this set to 100, 100, right, -100 to +100, it'd be so zoomed out that you wouldn't be able to see a lot of things. Okay, now let's go ahead and answer question 2 here. Determine the intersections between y1 and y2. Yes, you could leave them all on. I would not suggest, I would strongly recommend you do the following. Press y equals. I'm going to turn off, so I'm going to go to the equal sign where y3 is on, right? And turn that off, deselect it by hitting enter. Go to the y4 and deselect that by hitting enter. And then hit graph again. And now you're only going to see those two lines. It's just a lot easier to do, okay? My pink line looks different. Okay. Which one is the pink line again? That's the last one. Do you have the same equation? Oh, you fixed it. Okay, got it. Anyways, let's find the intersection between those 2 points, right? So second trace 5, and we're really close already. So I'm just going to go ahead and hit enter, 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 and there it is, 3.35 and negative 3.99, right? If you round it, make sure there's a negative. And now we want to find out the intersection between y1 and y3, right? That's the third question. So I'm going to go to y equals. I'm going to only turn on y1 and y3. So the equal sign should only be highlighted. So if you go all the way down here away from the equations, only those two are highlighted. And you hit graph. Now it's going to graph it all again. And we're now looking at that intersection there. So second trace 5. Let's go closer. And it's important that you learn to do this. Get closer to the intersection you're after, and you will see why later. Okay, so there's the intersection, negative 7.5 temp and negative 10.5. And now we're looking for intersection between y1 and y4. Okay, so we're going to turn on y1 and y4 and graph those. And then it's second trace 5. Hit enter, enter, enter. And that's 10.91, 0.55. It's just above the x-axis. Okay. And so forth, right? This is what I would expect you to do, which wasn't shown on the answer key. You would have to say, right? You'd at least have to tell me the buttons you press to get that. Okay, so second trace 5. Obviously, you entered this into y1 and the second equation into y2. But I'm not necessarily going to tell you, I'm just going to tell you in the future, like find the intersection between these two lines. So you will decide which one you're going to put into y1, which one you're going to put into y2, right? So it's going to look a little different, but the intersection will be exactly the same. So basically for all of these, you should have second trace 5. And it really got you to go back and forth. Hopefully you would have had to change your window. Sometimes you change it right away. Other times you change it, as you go. And obviously I've been doing this for a long time, so I can kind of foresee and predict what's going to happen, right? So I think we're good with this page. I think what I still would like you to do is at least be able to graph this, but like on paper. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to do this right here. Some of you have this handout, so you have a nice grid in the back, but this could be done on a fairly narrow stretch, right? So if this is my x-axis and this is my y-axis, you should be able to do this by hand, right? So using a ruler to draw your lines, of course. And again, I said already, if you go from negative 20 to positive 20 here, negative 20 to positive 20 there, you essentially fit in all of those points, right? So I'm going to kind of split this up 10, 20, right? So negative 10, negative 20, same distance approximately, 10, 20 this way. You go 10, 20 that way, especially because if we're going to remote learning, right, we're still going to meet online, right? But then you won't have grid paper, right? Like you most likely won't, and you won't have a printer, right? So what I do now is just to make it easier, I kind of split those distances, the markings that I've already have, in half one more time. It's just to give me a reference, okay? So that way I know that if this is 10, then obviously halfway is 5, okay? So let's go and find I'm going to use the x and the y intercepts up there. So you're not seeing them right now because I want to stick to this. So 10, 0 for the first line, and 0, -6, which puts me right about there. I would go ahead and graph that line already. Okay, so there it is. And for the purposes of this, we're just going to call it y1, okay? Just to make it a little less messy there. So 0, -6, and this is 10, 0. You've labeled 2 points, and you've labeled the line itself. Okay. Next, you have y2, which is 2.650. This is 5 right here, so 2.5 would be about half. I'm just going to go a little over to the right. And so that is 2.650. And then I'm at 0.15, which is right up here. Okay. Graph that line. Okay. This is y2. I'm going to label that point 2.650 and 0.15 right there. Next, I'm using -40, which puts me right about there, and 0.12, which puts me right about there. And yes, I'm going to cross over some of the labels. I'm just going to be light when I go over those. This is y3, -40, and over here it's 0.12. It's a bit messy, but it works, okay? And next I have 12.0, which would put me right about there, and 0.6. So 6 would be right about there. I'm going to connect those 2 points. Different colors would have been great, right? And this is y4, 12.0, and I'm just going to do this, watch. That's okay to do that, 0.6 there. And this 10.0 is for that one right there. So if it gets a little crowded, just make a little line that goes off. So, right, you could do it by hand. If you have this handout, you have a beautiful big grid at the back, which would obviously have made this a lot easier to see, okay? Did I ask you to label the coordinates of the intersection on the graph? I'm not sure. Let me just check here. Graph all lines. Make sure you label all points of intersection. So I did ask you to do that. And it's gonna be a bit crowded, but maybe I'll just use a different color. Okay. And essentially, if you just go by the coordinates, right, 3.35 and -399, that puts you here, here, right? This is 3.35 minus 3.99. Okay. Then you go -7.5 would put you there, -10.5 would put you right about here. That's the only one that's in that neighborhood, right? And then you have 10.91, 0.55. So 10.91, 0.55 is this one. I'm going to go out. And label it that way. Okay. And then I'm going to go 0.35, so I'm not moving a whole lot. 13.5, which is this one here. I'm just going to go out. So obviously, if you had given yourself more room, it would have been easier to do this, right? 1.74 and 5.129. 1.3 essentially. And negative, so that's this one here, negative 1.71, 6.86. So is this messier than IPR? Absolutely. And why? Because you have a calculator to aid you with, right, to find all those, so we can ask more questions, right? Because IPR, the biggest system that you would have had maybe is 3, right? Possibly just 2. And so here you have more, but it's all possible because we're using our calculator to find those points, right? I'm going to